In this video, I will show you how to compute z-scores in Jamovi. Let us load our data set. Let's say that you want to compute the z-scores for the first variable here, matrices at kindergarten. So we click on this variable, and then we go to Data, Compute. And we are presented with the new variable here, which is initially named with some letter of the alphabet, and we have to give our own name. So let's say this will be Z matrices, 0K. And we can add a description if we aren't sure and want to remember Z score. This is completely optional. We don't have to add a description here. So to compute the z-scores, we have to enter a formula here. A formula is a set of instructions of what numbers to use and what to do with them. So what we want to do is to use the functions that are provided by Jamovi. I will show you the direct way first. So if I click on functions and you go down, you will see that there is a z function here. You can double click on it, and so it appears up there, and the cursor is now inside the parentheses. So we go on to the variables column, find the variable we're interested in, which is this one, double click on it, and it is copied up there. So we took this from here and this from here, and this is the expression that we have created. And we're done. This is it. So we can click outside, and these are our z-scores. We didn't have to select them from down here. We could just as well, I'm going to delete this now by pressing backspace and type z parenthesis matrices 0 K, capital K, close parenthesis, enter. And that's exactly the same thing. So the list helps when you don't remember the names, and also helps to make sure you type the variable name exactly. Because if you don't type it exactly, then you will get an error. Say you type 1 instead of 0, and I get an error message. So an error message means I mistyped something. I have to find out what it is and do it correctly. Let's now practice with a different way to derive the same thing. Let's click on the original variable and click on compute again. And I'm going to name this variable something different so that it stands out in the variable list. And instead of using the z function, I'm going to go around and use the formula. So what is the formula for getting a z-score? Well, I need each value. I'm going to double click on the original variable and press minus on the keyboard, and then find the mean of the variable. So v mean is the variable mean of which variable. I have to say which variable of the same variable. So this says the value of this variable minus the mean of the variable, the same variable. In this case, I could have used another one for another formula. And now I want all of this divided by the standard deviation. Well, to do something with all of this as one thing, I have to enclose it in parentheses. So I have to go around and type an opening and closing parentheses. Now, this difference becomes one thing, and I can divide it Pressing on the division symbol, I can divide it by the variable standard deviation, which is this function. And I need to specify which variable goes in here, and it's again the same variable. So now I have divided the difference from the mean by the standard deviation. I can press enter, and of course, let me push this up, and you see these numbers are the same as these ones, of course, because we use the formula for the z-score here and the direct function to get a z-score here, and they are exactly the same. So you can use the direct function z whenever you need to compute a z-score in Jamovi. How about computing a scaled score from these values? This is very easy. We just have to apply the corresponding formula. Let us remove this column by clicking on delete. And now click compute to create a scaled score. Let's call it scaled score matrices 0K. And say these scaled scores with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. So use the z-scores that we have already computed. You always have to go through z-scores in order to produce scaled scores, because that's where the information is about how many standard deviations above or below the mean each value lies at. So the first thing we need to do is multiply the z-scores with the desired standard deviation, so by 15. And then add the desired mean, so plus 100. And these are our scaled scores. Scaled scores are always reported as integers. So to this formula, we need to add a way to remove the decimal places and use the int function, which converts a number to an integer. What we need to do is we need our original formula to be inside the parentheses. So I deleted the closing parentheses from there, and I type 1 at the end. So everything goes inside the int, and now they're all integers as expected. And so this is the conversion of these raw scores expressed in an IQ type scale with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. If we wanted to have a scaling of a mean of 10 and a standard deviation of 3, we would multiply by 3 and then add 10 instead.